Hello. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Thursday, Throwback Thursday. Welcome. So today's subject is on why should you pay your church tithes? Why should you pay your tithes? That is the subject today. And part of that subject, we are going to share a story from 2016 when I went to Kansas City, Missouri, which was definitely a trip of miracles, of provision, most definitely. So let's jump right into why should you pay your tithes. So I have been personally to share a little bit of. Okay, sorry that I had some technical difficulties, but I am back. So once again, my name is Kim McLeod. I'm a Virginia, USA citizen. I live in the Hampton Roads area. And so just to share a little bit about my personal background with tithing, I've always known the Lord. I've always known that there was a God at a young age, but I didn't come to the realization of who Jesus really was until I was about 13 years old. And at the time, I was living in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And ever since that time, the Lord instantly, honestly, to be quite honest with you, just like when Jesus revealed himself as God to me, as Savior, as my Lord, he also instantly gave me a revelation of tithing, on the importance of why should we tithe and give a tenth of our income to the Lord. So at a very young age, I've lived by this principle since I was 13 years old. I remember volunteering, and when I get a little chunk change from volunteering work, and as well when I cleaned for people, when I babysat, gifts, money for birthdays, money for Christmas, whatever income I ended up getting, I always gave the Lord a 10% of that, as well as I also gave an offering. And so I know people have different amounts that they feel that you should give as offerings, but my offering is always that's what I feel led to give on top of the 10th percent, which is the tithe. I feel very strongly that the Word of God, the Holy Bible, is truly God's living Word for sure. He just used people to write those words, but I do believe it's the living Word. That word's been true 2,000 years ago, 200 years ago. It's still standing strong today. I believe every word of that book, most definitely. And so there's a number of scriptures. I mean, there's actually many scriptures in the Bible that talks about money. And of course, there are specific scriptures that talk about giving God the tithe. And it says that if you do not give God a tithe, you are considered a robber, like you are a thief. You are stealing from God. And my personal understanding of it is that, you know, the good Lord has blessed me tremendously. I mean, I know I use that word all the time, but to be completely honest with you, 100%, I've had a beautiful experience being an American citizen. I've always been blessed with a job. The jobs necessarily probably wasn't always the best with pay, but I've always had a job, and with my job, I've always been able to pay my bills somehow, some way. Definitely me moving from Harrisonburg, Virginia to here to the Hampton Roads, it's definitely a culture shock when it comes to the cost of living. So with the jobs I've had in the past, not counting the one that I have, because the one I have is actually the most paying job I've ever had. And I've been completely blessed with this job. But all the other jobs prior to my current job, it's been really a miracle how I've been able to take care of myself. And I believe 100% I've been able to take care of myself because I am a tithe. I am a tither. And I've heard people preach it before. A recent preacher came to our church, Elder Reverend Gordon Mallory, he talked about, he's older, and he talked about at a young age, he tithes, and he sees it up to this point how God still takes care of him. And you know, honestly, I could sit here and tell you why you should tithe, why is it so important, the benefits from it spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially. I could tell you this by my personal experience, as well as other people that have similar stories, but it's not until you try it, it's not until that you become faithful in it, that you will begin to be a believer of it as well. Yes, there has been plenty of times whereas I'm about to tithe and I look at that money and I'm like, Lord, you know what I could be doing with this money right now, you know, but still at the same time, I do my best to be a cheerful giver, and I know that it's not mine anyway. The Lord said in his word that we should give the first fruits. That meaning the first of the top. You know, God wants priority. God always wants to be first, and he absolutely deserves to be first. So I take tithing and giving my offering and giving the missions very, very seriously. And so, and I do want to make mention of this. I know in my title it says, why should you give your tithes? But you should not just stop at tithes. It's tithes and offerings. Tithes and offerings you should be giving. So the first of your increase, take it out and give to the Lord. So I'm a huge believer of that. And with that being said, I want to share a story. I have many stories, and I actually had something miraculous that happened today, but I'm going to share that probably tomorrow. I feel led to share my miraculous financial blessing tomorrow. But today, since today is Throwback Thursday, I feel that I'm going to give you a story that will lead up to the story I will tell you tomorrow. So in 2016, a dear friend of mine told me about a conference called Passing the Mantle that normally happens in Kansas City, Missouri, yearly. I debated about it, honestly. To be quite honest with you, when it was first told to me, I was like, no, I don't need to go. There's no purpose of me going. And I remember this particular friend that told me about it, because they kept mentioning it, you know, and I remember one evening he told me about it once again. It was several times he had told me about it, but I just was like, I don't need to go. I remember the Lord, I really do feel strongly the Lord spoke to me, and he said, will you give me a chance? Will you give me a chance? And I was like, okay. And because my main reason, to be honest with you, my main reason that I kept saying no was finances. I didn't feel that I was at a place financially to go on such a trip. So I was like, I'm not going to go, because I'm just not finding I just don't have the extra income to make this trip, you know. So at the time, I only had one stream of income coming in, which was fine. I was still able to pay my rent, pay my utilities, pay my car note, pay my student loans when I could. So, you know, it was decent, but I just didn't feel like I had the extra money to go from Virginia to Kansas City, Missouri. So I was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to give you a chance. So at that moment in time, I began to make plans. To go. And so I'm trying to think here. So I remember I had to go to Florida. I think it was like either September, October, because the event was, when was the event? It was October, the event was October 29th, 2016. So, Lord Jesus, I need to get over. So early October, I had to go visit my family. My grandfather wasn't doing well. I needed to see my mother, so I made the trip to go down to Florida. And that trip was taken care of. Like, the Lord, even with that, when I come to think about it right now, actually that trip was covered by my family. My family actually sent me down to Florida to visit for about a week or so. So even in that was another example that the Lord takes care of the tither. But for the basis of, for the story of Kansas City, I was in Florida, and I remember even when I was in Florida, I was still going to church, I was still praying and whatnot. And I actually, in faith, at the moment in time, I had no money saved up for this trip. I had no indication that I was going to have the money for this trip. So, in faith, I called the hotel that I was planning to stay at. I called the hotel to make a reservation. I made the reservation with no money because supposedly they wasn't going to charge me until I got there. So I'm like, okay, well, I got time, whatever. I'm doing this in faith. So, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm giving you a chance. So I did that. And then during the week that I was in Florida, this one particular young lady, I never met her before, a day in my life, never met her, anything like that. But my friend that was telling me about the trip had told her that I was planning on coming and maybe we should connect. And for those of you that do not know, I'm a huge extrovert. I love being around people. I love meeting new people. It just really gives me energy. It's my drive. So I had no problem. So I'm not necessarily creeped out when people DM me on social media platforms. It doesn't bother me because I don't mind it. So she DM'd me and she messaged me asking about my plans for this trip, and she was telling me how she was thinking about going and asking me about the room and whatever. And it's funny how God works, because at the moment, to be honest with you, I wanted to just go by myself. I just wanted to stay by myself, and I told her where I was going to be staying, and her and my other friend and other people that was going, they was actually thinking about going to another hotel. And I was like, well, I don't feel led I need to go to that other hotel. I'm going to stay. Honestly, I don't remember the name of the hotel at the moment. But I told them, because where I was at was a little expensive. It was more expensive than the other hotels that everybody else was looking at. But I was like, no, I feel led I'm supposed to be at this hotel. So I'm just going to stay where I'm at. She messaged me, the next day. My other friend was messaging me. So it was like this back and forth thing for a couple of days. They're trying to figure out where everybody was staying at. And so I chose to just keep my room and not to move my room, because some people actually reserved their room where I was at and they moved their reservation. And so it was a lot of back and forth. I didn't deal with that. And so I was supposed to leave October 20. No. It was October. Yeah. So the conference actually started October 28th. I made plans to leave October 27th. And it's the thing too about this story is that the Lord actually gave me a couple of dreams of how this church looked. The church that I was going to in Kansas City, he actually showed, like, it was amazing. Like, it was early in the morning. It was a couple times early in the morning. The Lord literally showed me exactly how this church was going to look like. And I've never been to this church a day of my life. I have no clue how this church looks like or anything. And I was like, okay, Lord, okay, And he told me that I'm going to get you there. Like, for real. Like, the Lord told me, I'm going to get you there. And I'm like, okay. And so I at first was planning to take a plane, but that didn't work out because every time I was trying to book a plane, my flight, I just didn't have enough money, or I had to pay another bill. It was just like I ended up getting so much resistance. Like I want to say like 2-3 weeks before I left, I started hitting so much resistance. I mean, it was so much opposition. And I want to say the Sunday, so the Sunday before I was supposed to leave. So Sunday before that Thursday I was supposed to leave, my friend that originally told me about this trip, he was like, "You're still coming? What's your flight? When you're coming in?" And I was like, "I don't have a flight." I was like, "I don't have a flight." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I don't have a flight. Like, I'm not able to get a flight." He was like, "Okay." Like, and he just kind of like stopped it at that. He didn't bug me about it anymore. And, you know, to be honest with you, I went to church that Sunday morning, but I can honestly say I got back home and I was just depressed because I'm like, okay, Lord, you showed me through this dream, through this vision, that I was supposed to be at this event, and I wasn't able to get my flight. How am I supposed to get there? If this is your will, okay, I'll be there, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. So, to be honest with you, from Sunday afternoon till about Wednesday, no, I'm wrong. So from Sunday till that Thursday morning, I honestly thought I wasn't going to go. I already took off for work. Like, everything was cleared for me to go that weekend. But because I did not see the money in my face, because this to share with you all, this is so important for you, the tithe. Like I said, I've never seen the righteous forsaken nor seed begging bread. Like, God always provides for me. And I really do believe it's because I'm a tither. I live by faith. I walk by faith. I do my best not to look on the natural. I believe that is a gift that the good Lord has blessed me with. But just to share why I was so discouraged, I don't necessarily, and this is the thing too, I was supposed to get paid that Friday while I'm there, but of course, you're going to need money to get there, right? So I don't remember what overdrew my account, but my account was like super in the red. This is Thursday morning. This is the day that I was supposed to be leaving, right? Because the conference is from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I'm like, and even that morning when I got up, the Lord told me again, "I'm going to get you there." And I was like, "Okay, Lord." And I remember saying, "Okay, Lord. Okay." And so, with that being said, what ended up happening? 18 minutes in. Lord Jesus, I didn't expect it to be this long. If y'all could just bear with me, I'm going to tell you the story. And I just hope and pray that this will bless you, because it's about to get good. This is about to get real good right now. So I get to work. I don't remember what time I got to work, but I got to work. And my supervisor's like, "Oh, you ready?" She's like all pumped for me. She's like, "You ready to go? Are you excited?" And I was like, "Honestly, I don't think I'm going." And she's like, "What? Why would you say that? Why would you do that?" Like, my supervisor's up with like getting like intense on why I'm choosing not to go. Like, she's like, "What do you mean? You need to be there." Like, she was just like, "Okay, whatever." And then the young lady that you all remember that was reaching out to me all through October, that wanted to connect with me and seeing, about me staying with her or whatever, right? So she starts messaging me, and she's like, "How things going? Are you still coming? What's the update?" And I told her, I just told her straight up what was going on. I said, "You know what? I don't know I'm going to be able to go. Like, I just don't have the money to go." Like, I was just very honest with her, and she was like, "You know what? Don't tell anyone." But of course, now I'm on YouTube, but I didn't share her name, so no one would know unless you was there, and that's if you watched this video. But she's like, "Well, don't tell anyone." She's like, "I have you covered. I'll take care of your part of the room," because it was going to be her and another girl that was going to be in the room. I think somebody else was supposed to come. One or two other people were supposed to come, but they didn't come. And she said, "You know what? I'm going to take care of your part of the room. Don't worry about it. The room's booked. The room's paid for. Just, if you could just get here, it's going to be all right." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Okay." So I was telling her how, like, you know, I need the funds to get there. I didn't know how I was going to get there. Then another friend of mine, one of my dear friends of mine, she ended up, I think she texted me or called me, and she asked me, you know, how's things going? And she's from Virginia. She's from Northern Virginia. And she was like, how's things going? Are you still going? And I ended up going outside and taking a little break, and I called her. I can't remember if she called me or I called her, but I started telling her what was going on. And she's like, okay, we're going to pray right now. She's like, we're going to pray right now. And, like, I'm in my car. We're praying. I'm crying. I'm boo-hooing. I'm crying. Like, just praying, just interceding, right, for this trip. God is my witness. She is my witness. I have so many witnesses to confirm that this is 100% true. This is 100% true. I got to finish this video. So if y'all need to take a break and finish it later, that's fine. But I need to get this message across and finish this story for you all, because I know this is going to bless someone. This is for somebody that needs a miracle or provision. So after we get done praying, I won't say we probably prayed for 10 minutes or something like that. I'm not sure, but after we finished praying, I remember, God is my witness, another friend of mine, another dear friend of mine that I've known for several years as well, that lives in the state of Virginia. She lives in another part of Virginia. She texted me. Did she text me or call me? I can't remember if she either texted me or called me. I think she may have texted me. But she's like, oh, I just sent you that money. And I said, the story behind this was a couple weeks or a few weeks before this trip, this particular friend told me that she was going to send me some money. But I didn't know when, I didn't know how, I didn't know how much it was going to be. Had no idea, right? So she didn't tell me in the text how much she was sending me. She sent it through Walmart so I could go pick it up. She had already sent the money. And I was like, okay. And I told my friend that just prayed for me. I was like, I just got some money, but I don't know how much it is. And so I'm going to go check. So immediately I went to the Walmart to get the money. Y'all not going to believe this. I went to the Walmart to get the money. And I didn't, at the time, I didn't know how much she was sending me. So I told the lady, my name, phone number or whatever. The lady told me that my friend sent me $225. And I remember looking at her like, okay, how much you sent me? Like, it is crazy because the lady was shocked that I didn't know how much she was sending me, but I didn't know. She sent me, I have it written down. I wrote it down, guys. I wrote this stuff down. So it was $225 that she sent me. Now, remind you, my checking account was at a negative $271.96. Negative $271.96. That was my checking account. It was overdrawn. It was completely in the red. But at this moment of time, my room was already taken care of. Then I ended up getting $225, which I did tithe off of. Just letting y'all know, I did tithe off of that as well. And so that meant that I had enough money. I had enough money to get me there. I had enough money so I could drive there, because I ended up driving. I drove from Kansas City. I drove from Hampton Roads, Virginia. I drove from Norfolk, Virginia, all the way to Kansas City, Missouri. So what ended up happening, I get back to work or whatever, finish out my work day. I ended up telling, my friend that called to pray for me. I told the new friend that took care of my hotel. And I was like, okay. And I told my other friend that first told me about the trip, and he was like, you're crazy. Like, why you always gotta drive? You're just so crazy. And I'm like, that's the way the Lord wants me to go. So I remembered that it was crazy because it was such a rush. So I got home, I hurried up and packed. I had to tell my choir director that I'm not gonna be there that night because I'm going to Kansas City. Like, everything was already taken care of. Like, my pastor already knew, but I wasn't sure was I able to go because of finances. It was such on time because I rushed to the office. I had to get something from the office. No, what happened? I went to the office. I went to the church office because I wasn't going to get paid for my job until Friday, correct? But like I said, I'm a believer of tithing and giving your offerings and your missions. So I wrote a check. I wrote a check for my tithes, offerings, and missions. So that was Thursday. I wrote a check because I knew on Friday I was going to get paid. So I want to make sure I give God his first fruits. So even though I'm in a negative, I want to make sure that when I got paid, that I'm still scraping the top. I'm still taking the top off and giving it to the Lord. So I paid my tithes, offerings, and missions by a check before I left. So that was taken care of. And also I had to pay rent. So I also wrote a check for my rent. I'm thinking my rent at the time was, how much was my rent? I think my rent at the time was $700. Yeah, I think my rent, so my rent was $700. Before I did that, I also made sure I wrote my check for my tithes, offerings, and missions before I left. So this was a complete faith move. So I got on the road. I was able to get on the road on Thursday, October 27th, 2016 at 10 p.m. I was able to get everything taken care of. I got on the road at 10 p.m. in Norfolk, Virginia. And then I didn't make it to Kansas City, Missouri to the next day, October 28th, 2016 to 6:20 p.m. So think about that. It took me how many hours to get there? It took me almost 24 hours to get there. From 10 p.m. on Thursday, I didn't get there to 6:20. I pulled in at the hotel at 6:20 p.m. I had enough time. To get ready and go to church. So I think church service was like 7:30. So imagine that. Imagine driving from 10 p.m. on Thursday night to 6 p.m., 6:20 p.m. the next day. I stopped for only like a couple hours just to shut my eyes for a couple hours. And it was crazy because the enemy that's against me tried to attack my body when I was there, like that first night. But my friends, they prayed over me that night, and I was fine. The enemy against me did not want to go on this trip because, like, I can't even tell you right now. I'm 28 minutes in. I can't even tell you all the amazing stuff that took place. But because I'm just sharing the provision part of it. But the other provision part of it, which is I'm not even finished yet, was that so my room was taken care of. My fees for gas was taken care of on the way up there. And on the way back, because I still was short because I had to drive up there and I had to take care of food. I had to eat. So I had enough money to get there to eat. And then on my way back, I actually had to credit my card on the way back to get home. I credited my card twice. So I even got home on faith. And then my friend, also another friend of mine, this friend was in Florida. This is why it pays to know people. All over. So my friend in Florida, she actually sent me $100 on the 29th. Was it the 29th? No, I think she meant to send it on the 29th, but something happened. Something happened that wasn't able to be sent. But she was able to, so she was able to send the money the day I got back. Whatever that day was, I think it was the 31st or something like that. Or the 1st of November. She sent me $100 when I got back home. So when I left, I was taken care of. And when I got home, because I was short, I was actually in a negative when I got back home. I wasn't that much in a negative, but I was in a negative again on back home because I had to credit my card to get back home. And homegirl sent me $100 when I got back. And she didn't know that, and I wasn't even expecting it at the time because something happened, so I didn't know she was able to do it. And so she texted me or called me, and she was like, "Oh, I just sent you some money." It was like $100 in my account she sent me.